You found the skeleton. How would you calculate that? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
Hey there YouTube, the Dapper Dinosaur here. Today we're going to leave behind the relatively easy world of pulmonic consonants and dive into the vowels, diacriticals, and other bits of the International Phonetic Alphabet. So this funny shaped chart is the vowel space diagram. It has two axes, the front to back axis and the openness axis. The chart is designed to basically represent the mouth of a speaker facing to the viewer's left. Now, maybe you don't remember grade school all that well and aren't up on exactly what vowels are, and that's okay. For one thing, they don't actually contrast as strongly with consonants as you might expect. That's why we have things like semivowels, and why some languages get along just fine with words that don't have any vowels at all, although no known languages lack vowels entirely. Vowels are speech sounds formed by barely restricting airflow at all, but still, the position of the tongue changes to make the area where the vowel resonates come from the back, middle, or front of the mouth. Additionally, the lips may be drawn together somewhat to change the quality of the vowel. As a rule, vowels are voiced, and the IPA assumes that all vowels are voiced unless otherwise noted. We'll get to how you'd note such a thing later. So let's talk about how the vowel chart works. Vowels are described by how far forward in the mouth the resonance is made, how open the jaw is, and whether or not the vowel is rounded. Similar to what you may remember from the pulmonic consonant chart, some parts of this chart have two letters. In this case, the difference is not unvoiced versus voiced, instead it is unrounded versus rounded. Rounded vowels involve making the lips into a sort of O shape, wherein unrounded vowels, the lips are not moved and simply left in a neutral position. The reason the chart slopes down and to the right is that as the jaw opens, the ability of a person to make a vowel sound at the very front is reduced. So even though A and E are both front vowels, E is made much farther forward than A. Also, note that this is where the letter Y occurs in the IPA, and it indicates a closed front rounded vowel, U, not the approximate it indicates in English. Interestingly, this use of Y actually matches the use of the letter in Old English, which used the sound U as a standard vowel. Also notable is that while there are marked letters on this chart, the vowel space is actually a smooth continuum, and languages often have vowel sounds that don't actually have their own distinct IPA vowel letter that can be used on its own in a careful transcription. In cases such as these, various diacritical marks can be used to indicate that a vowel is raised a bit or lowered, or more or less rounded than normal. Let's take a moment to talk about the two most common vowel systems, the 3-vowel and the 5-vowel system. You might think English uses a 5-vowel system since you've heard of the vowels A, E, I, O, and U. But remember, this isn't spelling class. This is phonetics. In phonetics, what letters you use in the standard orthography of a language doesn't matter at all. All that matters is the distinct sounds that a speaker makes, and English has way more than 5 vowels. A language that has 3 vowels is Arabic, and the vowels are A, U, and E. On the other hand, Spanish has I, U, E, O, and A. But both languages, along with English, have diphthongs, and we're going to introduce them now. Diphthongs, and less commonly triphthongs, are a sequence of vowels that are produced by starting at one vowel and then sliding the vocal organs to the positions of the next vowel within one syllable. An example is the vowel sound in the word aisle. The sound starts at A and then slides to E. In the IPA, these can be written as simple back-to-back vowels, or they can be joined with a tie bar, as we saw with affricatives in the previous video. So let's go through the vowels in standard American English. But do be aware that vowels are one of the parts of phonetics that varies the most within a language, and so this will not represent nearly all of the varieties in even North American English, and will be even less representative of English spoken in places like the British Isles, Australia, South Africa, etc. Alright, for pure vowels in English, we have E, A, U, A, E, U, A, E. And for diphthongs, we have ia, a, oi, I, o, and ow. Okay, well that's enough on vowels. Let's take a look at the diacritical marks. Now, English basically does not use diacritical marks, except in some foreign words where it keeps them, but even this is inconsistent. However, if you're familiar with most European languages, you'll know about accent marks. These are diacritics. They are small marks made near or attached to a letter that indicates that it is pronounced in some way that is not standard for that letter if unmarked. The IPA has a bunch of these, and we're not going to go over all of them in depth, but we'll go over the ones that show up in the phonetics of major languages such as English or Spanish, the ones my viewers are most likely to be familiar with. We're going to start at the left and work our way down, then up to the next column. First we get to the voiceless and voiced symbols. This is exactly what it sounds like, and while most of the time you would indicate this by use of another letter entirely, in some cases, such as nasals or vowels, you can't, and in others you may want to indicate it for reasons of clarity. For example, if you were transcribing Korean, which does not make voicing distinctions, it may be easier to simply always use the unvoiced letters for plosives in Korean, but then indicate voicing when it occurs with a diacritical mark. This helps remind the reader that voicing is not an integral part of the sound, but rather something that happens because of the sounds around it. Next comes aspirated. This is something that occurs in English quite a lot, but English speakers don't use it to distinguish between sounds. If you say the English word taught as a native English speaker, the two T's will not be pronounced the same. The first one is aspirated, and the second one is not. You can check this by putting the back of your hand up to your mouth and saying the word, taught. You'll notice a fairly strong puff of air after the first T, but not so much after the second. That puff of air is aspiration, and in many languages, such as the aforementioned Korean, aspiration is used to distinguish between sounds. If you're learning such a language, you'll need to pay careful attention to whether you and others are putting that puff of air right after stop sounds. The next 6 diacritics all help move a primary vowel around the vowel chart slightly, but not so much that it would be better described with an adjacent primary vowel. I won't go into each diacritic in detail, and these are not terribly common diacritics. The syllabic mark indicates that a certain consonant is functioning as the core of a syllable rather than as a vowel. This is not a terribly common feature, but some languages, such as Serbian and Hungarian, use some consonants as syllabic cores. The non-syllabic marker indicates that a vowel is not at the core of a syllable, and instead is really part of a larger syllable. An example could be the Irish pronunciation of the word film, which has a short schwa after the L sound and before the M. But this does not quite rise to the level of a syllable. It's more of a short spacer to give the speaker more room to get the L and M out distinctly. Next is rhoticity, a diacritic that is used all over the place in English, especially American varieties, but almost nowhere else. This mark indicates that the vowel it is attached to is pronounced with the tongue ending up in the position to make an R sound by the end of the vowel. This is common in rhotic English dialects at the end of words, and so words like car or pier end in rhoticized vowels. On to the second column. We have the breathy voice and creaky voice. Breathy voice sounds a bit like this, and creaky voice sounds like this. As you might notice, my voice is naturally a bit on the creaky side, but this would not normally be transcribed as such. Usually this indicates an intentional voicing that is not simply the speaker's standard manner of vocalizing. We're going to group this whole next bunch together and say that they indicate that in addition to the primary point of articulation indicated by the letter, these indicate that the letter is also pronounced with restriction to the airflow in another part of the vocal apparatus, such as the lips being brought together for a sound like the first consonant in the English word quake, or perhaps it is pharyngalized, like the sound in Arabic tabib, meaning doctor. This is done by tightening the throat muscles as the sound is produced. Next we come to a few more vowel modifiers that slightly move the core vowel around on the chart. Again, we won't really go over this in detail. The last diacritical mark I want to mention is the nasalized mark for vowels. If you're familiar with French or Portuguese, you'll be familiar with nasalized vowels. They occur in words like the French word couchon, in which the last vowel is nasalized. In nasalized vowels, the vowel is pronounced while air also goes through the nasal cavity. Next, let's look at suprasegmentals. These are sort of like diacritical marks, but they usually follow letters, and 2 of them modify a syllable more than a letter. The first 2 are primary and secondary stress, and indicate, you guessed it, which syllable gets stressed and to what degree. The next 3 modify how long a vowel is held. In many languages, such as Arabic, the length of time a vowel is held can determine the difference between one word and another, so this can be very important to note. We're not going to talk about the minor and major group marks, as if I'm being honest, I'm not good at them and they don't get used in any languages I've studied. But we also have syllable break marks and linking. Syllable breaks are not always written, but if the language allows for a lot of consonant clusters or for vowels to come in contact with each other while being in separate syllables, this symbol, which is basically a period, can be inserted to indicate where the syllable break is. Last, the linking bar indicates the absence of a break and is used to indicate things like diphthongs, triphthongs, and affricatives or double articulations. We're also going to talk about two other symbols in the IPA that don't fit anywhere else on the chart. These symbols are the W symbols. The standard W sound is written with a W, and the unvoiced version, like you might say if you're trying to say the word whale in a pretentious or old-timey way, is written with an upside-down W. So with this knowledge, you can properly transcribe just about any European language and even a fair few other languages, such as most Semitic languages, and even a fair few Native American and East Asian languages. If you decide to keep studying and learn more about the things that we sort of glossed over here, you'll be able to eventually transcribe any speech sounds that any human is ever likely to make. Well, that's it for today. Thank you very much for watching. Please remember to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already subscribed, and hit the bell icon so you're always notified when there's new Dapper Dino content. Make sure you leave a comment telling me whether you liked or disliked this video. Alright, I'm the Dapper Dinosaur. I want to take a little time to thank my channel members and patrons, especially those pledging $20 or more. Bob Knob, Bent Hovend, Ian Chen, Chris Love, Sphincter of Doom, The Venerable Bede, Patrick Dennis, and Res Instance. YouTube is a very volatile platform, what with fraudulent copyright claims, demonetization, and the ever-decreasing share of ad revenue on the platform. It is very hard to rely on YouTube. My members and patrons help keep this channel going, and without them, the channel wouldn't exist. If you'd like to join my Patreon, the link is in the description, and if you'd like to become a channel member, that link is below the video. It's the join button here on YouTube. Either way, you'll get access to early videos, an exclusive Discord server, and if you pledge enough, 3D assets you can use in your own projects.